Boro slumped to another really, really awful defeat at the Riverside in one of the most toxic atmospheres I've ever been a part of, and it leaves us with the question of, is that it for Michael Carrick? What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and another episode of the Project Boro reviewing show, the series on the channel where we, of course, review every single Boro game. And today we're reviewing one of the worst games I think I've ever been to as a Boro fan, and that's not down to the football, albeit it wasn't a great game, but because it was one of the most uncomfortably toxic and just damn right horrible and negative atmospheres I've ever been in at the Riverside as a football fan. It really was a horrible game to sit there and watch, a horrible atmosphere to be a part of. It was, for me, the end of the road for Michael Carrick. And as we know, Boro have lost now to a team who were in worse form than we were. It was a must-win game. You know, Watford had won 2 in 12, lost 7 of them games. They were in appalling form, and it was a game that was, quite honestly, a draw was even unthinkable. It was a game Boro had to win. Michael Carrick had to win, or at least come away with a performance that was commendable, with some signs of life, some positives, something we could cling on to say, okay, there is light at the end of the tunnel. But unfortunately, it felt more like a desperate final roll of the dice that did not work. And all the messages, all of the signs there, for me, were pointing towards this being the end of the road for Michael Carrick. And it's a real shame. You know, I said this after the Sheffield United game. I'm past the point of being annoyed. I'm apathetic. Again, I didn't care for anything that was happening in that ground today. The pre-match atmosphere, during the game, after the game, I didn't really utter a single noise for anything, for a chance we had, for the goal they scored, for the substitutes at full time, all of it. I was just sat quietly, not really reacting or feeling anything towards this team, this manager. I think from my point of view, I've checked out at this point. I really have. I'm sort of just going to the games out of obligation, not feeling or getting emotional one way or the other. I feel completely checked out and disconnected from this Boro team, this manager, whatever it is that we were doing, wherever it is we were going. It just feels like there is a natural end to it now. You know, the team sheet felt like it was different, but it was sort of a desperate, as I say, final roll of the dice, throwing the team together and I guess throwing shit at the wall and hoping something sticks. The whole game felt like that. You know, substitutions were getting made at half-time, which never happens. Players were just getting thrown on left, right and centre in the second half. It felt like Michael Carrick was at the end of the road with one last attempt, one last try to try and find something in this team, find something in the setup, some positive, something we could take forward when nothing worked. It all really kind of backfired, and it leaves us in a position where I don't see a future for him. And as I say, the only emotion I feel for Boro at the moment is just sadness, because it was at one point, and at times has been, the best football I've ever seen at Boro in my 20 years of watching. And on our day, we can be the best team I've ever seen at this level. We really can. I'm not over-egging that, but the sad reality is that team, that really good footballing team that we see, that we know we can be, has become more and more of a rarity, to the point to which now we've not really seen it in 3 months. We're now losing at home to teams we shouldn't be, dropping points we shouldn't be, 4 points off the playoffs. There's 4 teams in between us in the top 6. As I say, we're only going backwards. And worst of all, he's lost the fans. That's the kicker for me. I don't think the players have quite gave up on him, although I don't think it's a happy camp. And from what I've been told, and, you know, people at the club, it is not a good place to be right now. It doesn't sound like it, and I can completely see why. But I think it's not the style of play. Results are obviously a massive, massive reason, but I think the big factor that I think will decide this now is the fans. He has lost everyone. At one stage it was 50-50. There'll still be a few who, will be clinging on to the hope he can find a way, but he has lost the fan base completely. As I say, the atmosphere today, it was dead. There was no cheers, there was no chants, there was nothing. Apathy has well and truly set in, and at times, when Boro were trying to play the ball around at the back, there was just boos from certain parts of the stadium. When certain players got subbed off, there were sarcastic cheers when their replacement come on, and then at the end, the atmosphere was deafening with boos. It's got all the hallmarks of that. We've been there before when something comes to its end and the fans have just checked out. They've checked out of the manager. They've lost complete faith in him. They've lost complete faith in the squad, the style of play. Certain players they've completely turned on. It's ugly. It's ugly. It's toxic. It's horrible. And the time for change is now. Simply put, season card renewals are up in the next week or two. The club couldn't be going into that with a fan base more toxic than it is right now, and they will lose a lot of season ticket holders if Michael Carrick is seemingly still in charge next season. It will be a tough buy for a lot of people. We're already the second highest season ticket in the league, in one of the most deprived areas of the country. It's already a tough ask for a lot of people to commit 500, 600 plus pound to this team every year, and unfortunately with the way they are now, they're going to lose a ton of people if they stick with Carrick. So I think as much as it needs to be an on-field, positional decision with where Boro are in the league, the team at the moment, I think also from a financial point of view and where Boro are in their financial cycle with season ticket renewals coming up, they need to do something for me to give fans a reason to sign up next season, because at the minute, Carrick, in their minds, he's done. And, for me, I never want to wish for a manager to lose his job. I never want to do that. It just always feels wrong, but it's the right thing to do. That's what I would say at this point. It's the right time. There's a bit of a gap to the next game. We've got 15 games to go. There's no signs for me that this is going to turn around quickly enough. It's all just wishful and hopeful thinking. And I think this was today the final sign for me that he's just out of ideas. He tried something completely left field, didn't work. The substitutes felt erratic, reactionary and desperate. I think he's done. And it's sad. It's awful to say. So anyway, let's get into the game then. There's not much to discuss, to be honest, but the lineup is certainly one. We expected changes and we got them. And that's something I will commend Michael Carrick for. I think he knew, no matter how stubborn and tied to his system and style of play was, there were players in that team that simply had to be dropped after Sheffield United and the system had to be tweaked. And as I say, it felt like he was just desperately trying to find something. And I don't know how quickly this could have been worked on from Wednesday to now. So I guess it was thrown together quite quickly as a desperate hope that something would just happen. But it didn't really work. Footmobbers dressed it up as a 4-4-2, but it really, really wasn't a 4-4-2. The back line, he brought in Neto Borges for Ryan Giles, who of course has struggled defensively in the last few games. In midfield, there were changes as well. Azaz was taken out. We had Dan Barlaser coming in. Illing Jr. was taken out. Morgan Whittaker was brought in as well, as was Tommy Conway. Although it was displayed as a 4-4-2, it was trying to work it out as the game was going along, really. It was a back four, but then there was sort of a midfield three with Barlaser sat in between Morris and Hackney. But then in possession, Hackney would advance into the 10, sort of alongside Iheanacho. So in possession, we were sort of playing with two 10s. Although Hackney would drop into a midfield three when we were out of possession. Whittaker was just glued to the touchline on the right-hand side. Then you had sort of Iheanacho hovering, playing off Tommy Conway, who was the number 9. And as I say, it just felt like a desperate hope that something would work here. It felt like it was sort of thrown together. And I'm not going to, knock Carrick for trying. It's definitely better that he tried to do something different rather than sticking with the same. I think he'd have been in for a lot more criticism had he just completely stuck to what he was doing. But this wasn't a imaginative, inventive masterstroke. This was, I think, a manager who thought, I can't be seen to do the same thing. I need to do something different, but I'm kind of out of ideas and I don't have time between games to think of something. So I'll try this and hope it works. And it didn't, and not to jump through the game too much, but there were certain things that happened which were just very uncharacteristic of Michael Carrick, which I think, again, was real worrying signs and writing on the wall. At half-time, when we were 1-0 down, he made a change at half-time. That has never happened at all in his tenure, even when we've been 2-3-0 down at times. Never happened. That was a sign for me that he knows, or he knew, it was win or bust. And for him to make a change at half-time, again, it was a case of desperately trying to move things around. I mean, I don't know how many times our formation and personnel changed around in the game, desperately trying to just find something that worked. But Bergso come on for Barlasser, so we went back to a sort of midfield two with Barlasser, then moved out onto the left. Not too long after that, when it still wasn't working, Finazaz was brought on, I think, for Iheanacho. Dijksteel was brought on for Luke Ayling. The sarcastic cheers when Luke Ayling was took off was uncomfortable, to say the very least. Dilling Jr. was brought on to the right-hand side to begin with for Morgan Whittaker, but then moved to left-back later on because we then brought Marcus Force on to just chuck another attacker in there. Bottom line is, everything about today just felt like a manager at the end who was just desperately hoping he would find a solution in a game, mid-game, and it never happened. It just never, ever came about. So then the game itself, it's a poor game. It's exactly what you'd expect from two teams who were playoff contenders and have fallen off so much. They're absolutely shot of confidence, way shot of confidence. They've not won in I don't know how long, 2 wins and 12 it was up until this point. We were 3-10, I think. So two teams who were widely out of form, and it was that kind of game. There were moments, they'd have an opportunity. I think Chatvertadze had a good shot that was saved. They had a few really good opportunities, half chances, which they should have done better with Watford. We had a few as well. Tommy Conway had an effort. We were in and around the box. Shots were blocked. They keep make a few decent saves, but nothing of note. It just felt like whatever we were trying to do in that first half, it was all in front of Watford. We really lacked pace. I can't tell you how much we miss Ben Doak and Emmanuel Latelath. It's just not the same without them. I think, I'm not making it as an excuse for Michael Carrick by any means, but it doesn't help him when our best striker, who was an absolute nightmare up front, has left and been replaced with a player like Iheanacho, whose work rate is really low and is a player who is a bit of a luxury player who might pop up in moments but doesn't really give you what you need, I don't think, up front for Boro. And you lose Ben Doak, who's an out-and-out winger who would get down the outside and terrorise his left-back, and instead we've now got Morgan Whittaker, who, is just constantly coming inside into traffic. We had this before with Silvera the season before and other players we've had in the last season or two, which never really worked. It always seemed to be worse for Boro having inverted wingers on both sides. Ben Doak just gave us that outlet, that width. Without him and Lath, this team is just not the same. So as much as, you can't sort of criticise Carrick for that. One's an injury, one's a sale. I still feel like that's, they are huge factors as to why Boro's attack is just completely off it. Pair that with Finazaz and how out of form he is, you're struggling to see where anything is going to really click up front for this Boro team, especially when you've got so many new players in there at the same time. But as we sort of suspected, out of the two teams who were both playing pretty poor, wasn't a great game, both teams had moments, which team was going to strike first? And the first goal was so important in this game, and I honestly thought if Boro got it, then maybe there was a chance we could see something. But if it had gone to Watford, I thought from the start that would be game over, because I just knew the atmosphere would turn so badly. I could just not see us getting back into it after that. And unfortunately, it was Watford who struck on the 40th minute. And again, wasn't a great goal to concede. Was nowhere near the level of individual, catastrophe that we've seen in recent weeks, but it wasn't a great goal to concede either. It was straight from a set piece. It's your bread and butter, it's your basics. And I think Sissoko just ran off Neto Borges, just absolutely nowhere near him. Borges just lost him. It was a free header in Boro's box, easy as you like. A really poor goal to concede once again. And that was that for half time. And then second half, I thought Watford had some really good chances second half. They started the second half the better. Forced Travers into one or two really good saves. They got down our left, or their right, our left a few times. Or our right there, left with Chakvatadze, who forced Travers into a few saves. He really did keep us in the game, Matt Travers, as he has done in the 3 games he's played. Although he has made the odd error. Sheffield United, Sunderland and Watford could have had a lot more if it wasn't for him. So he did all he could in goal, made some really good saves. Honestly, if it had gone 2-0, I think there'd have been an exodus at the Riverside. I really, really do. And then sort of from the hour onwards, it was Boro, not dominance, but possession. We were in and around the box. Bergzorg come on and forced a good save out of their goalkeeper. Probably the only good save we forced out of him second half. But other than that, set plays, corners, crosses, put a good few balls in. Rav hit the post with a header from a corner. But it felt like there was a real air of inevitability about it. You just felt like we were just never going to get back into the game because we sort of were just never meant to. And Watford defended pretty well, to be fair, but I think their fans would agree, they didn't have to be great today. It was a game between two really low on confidence, poor sides, and they've edged it from a set piece where we switched off, and that was the difference, and that was it. And I've got to say, not only were some of the substitutes and just at times in the game, the atmosphere was really bad, and the booing was deafening. At full time, it was beyond deafening. The reaction at full time was sobering for Michael Carrick. He went straight down the tunnel, which probably won't have helped. It does feel like the whole thing is just unravelling dramatically. And I'll get more onto him at the end of the video. We'll have a quick look at the stats. As you can see, Boro had more of the ball but didn't do as much with it. Watford edged the XG, had more chances, more shots on target, but probably why their XG is a lot higher. They had 2 big chances to Boro's 0. They missed 1 big chance. We didn't have any, as I say, at all. And onto the individuals. I mean, as I say, it was a mishmash of a formation of players hoping something would work, but it never looked like it was going to work. I thought Travers kept us in the game. Probably my man of the match, to be honest with you. I think things could have gotten hella ugly if he didn't hit the saves he did second half. Rav and Edmondson, I think, did okay. They had a more solid game than what they have done in the last couple of games, which was good to see. Luke Ayling, again, not as bad as recent games, did give the ball away at times. I noticed in the first half, he wasn't getting forward anywhere near as much. I don't think he did throughout the game, actually, which is something I've been sort of calling out for. He did stick alongside Rav and Edmondson in more of a back three, which was good to see. It did leave Whittaker on his own down the right-hand side a little bit, but it was good to see Ayling was sort of sticking more into a back three. And I will say, we were, I would say, a little bit more solid than what we have been in recent games. We were going up against a very poor side who have been just as poor, and it lowers confidence what we were, so maybe that's a factor as well. But Ayling certainly didn't advance as far forward. He stuck back a little bit, which I think helped cover him a little bit. Borges, yeah, it's the same as what we've sort of seen from Neto Borges. Got into some good attacking areas. Quality wasn't there. I do feel like, despite recent form, Ryan Giles would have just been more suited to this game. I don't think they ever really gave us much of an issue down the right with Sissoko, so I feel Giles would have fared better defensively today and would have gave us that little bit extra offensively that we probably needed, because, as I say, Ayling was sort of sitting a bit deeper anyway. Borges was getting forward a lot more. That probably would have suited Giles, but he went with Borges, and yeah, he didn't give us much, and obviously lost Sissoko completely for their goals, so that wasn't great defending from him. And then in the midfield, I wouldn't say the midfield was that great either, but I feel like they were playing in a formation and a setup they just weren't used to playing in. They were sort of getting in each other's space. You could tell it was a setup that I don't think they'd worked on all that much, and they weren't completely suited to. Hayden Hackney was the more advanced of the two, and as he does, made some good driving runs, was trying to make stuff happen at times. I thought Hackney did work hard in this game. Morris was a little bit off it, I would say. Barlasser wasn't really in the game, made a few good challenges in the first half, but didn't really affect the game offensively. Whittaker, as I say again, was getting into the game second half. I will say that. He still hasn't quite gotten going in a Boro shirt, but did cut in off the right a few times. Put some good balls into the box in the first half, but didn't really be much more of an offensive threat. Albeit, as I say, was getting more into the game second half. Maybe that's because Azaz come on, but then shortly after he was hooked anyway. And then the two up front didn't really work either. Again, the first time we've seen them together, again, it felt thrown together. Conway didn't get into the game at all, didn't have a sniff, didn't have a chance really, and Iheanacho was fairly ineffective as well. He showed a few moments where his touch was good and link-up play was okay, but another player who didn't really affect the opposition offensively whatsoever. And that leaves me to the table, which is not pretty reading for Boro, because as I say, we've now been jumped by Watford themselves. Norwich are right behind us only by a single goal. At this point, they dropped points again today, so we could easily be 12th at the moment. We're not too far off. QPR are now level on points with us, and they were bottom of the league when we met in November, which is absolutely crazy. But we've been jumped by Sheffield Wednesday, we've been jumped by Bristol City, we've been jumped by Coventry, and we're now 4 points off 6th, 7 points off Blackburn. It is at a point now where I think alarm bells need to start ringing. I've said this for weeks. For weeks fans have been saying, well, it's okay because we're only a point off, it's okay because we're only 3 points off, it's okay because of this. As I've said, it only takes a couple of teams to pick up. West Brom, they've been doing alright. They're 4 points clear of us, even though they've not been in the best form. Blackburn won 3 of the last 4, 7 points clear of us now. You think, how the hell are we going to make that gap up? So now, are we in a fight for just 6th? And are we in a, 6-7 team scrap for 1 place? Doesn't matter how close we are. People say you're only a certain number of points off, it's okay, yeah, but we are fighting with 5 or 6 other teams. So albeit we're only a few points off, we are embroiled with so many teams now. It's going to be so difficult to get in there now, especially with us being the most out of form out of the lot. There's no one else in the top half more out of form than Boro. In fact, looking at the last 5, I think only Swansea and maybe Derby and Luton are more out of form than what Boro are in the last 5 games. It truly is a horrible, horrible place to be in right now. A horrible run of form. And today felt like Carrick's last chance to really try something. That didn't work. So I now look at it and think, well, that's him out of ideas. What more can he do? And I do feel like now is the time for Boro to pull the trigger and make a change. So yeah, I think for me, listen, Michael Carrick has gave us some of the best football I've ever seen. But as I say, it's okay when you create a very nice footballing side, but you need to create a winning football side. And sadly, the times we've seen this Boro team play good football and win well has been getting more sparse as the months have gone on. We've not seen Boro anywhere near their best since we won them 3 games in a row with Luton, Oxford and QPR in November. As we know, since then we've only won twice. One of them games was a 1-0 win away to Hull, which was a last-minute winner. So for me, I can't understate how poor this run of form has been. Now, I don't know if it's because teams have worked us out. I don't know if it's because of the January window, which hasn't helped at all, by the way. We're a centre-back down. We didn't have Dale Fry in the squad at all today, so our only 2 fit centre-backs were on the pitch. That makes me feel uneasy. That's a really bad position we've left ourselves in, down to a really bad January. Obviously, we've not replaced Latelath with a striker who is of similar profile. I don't think we'd have replaced him like for like anywhere, because you've sold a £22 million player. But Iheanacho is nowhere near the profile of Latelath, so we are really missing that presence up front who is both an aerial threat, a great presser of the ball, a nuisance for defenders who has real pace and good finishing. We've come out of January, and I think it's safe to say, far worse than what we went in. So Carrick can't be at fault for that, but unfortunately, all the problems that we've been seeing for months have just culminated at a point now where something needs to change to save our season. And as we know, his style of play has stopped getting us results. We need to be a winning team who can adapt, who can win in different ways, win when they're not playing at their best, find ways of getting results. Too often at times this season have we either not recognised when something was going wrong or when we're getting targeted in weak areas. too often we've not done anything about it. We've continued to plough away, or we've went for the throat in a game and end up losing it. In-game management has always been a question mark. Late substitutes has always been a big question mark. Our home form is only getting worse. It just feels like it is now at a point where he's at the point of no return. And I think, as I say, it's all because of the fans. I think when you lose the fans, you're toast. And the fans have checked out. And I don't blame them. I've checked out as well. I'm, as apathetic as anybody when it comes to Boro right now. And I am looking at the final 15 games and I am desperate for something to happen to just give me that injection of enthusiasm, because at the minute I couldn't give a monkey's about these last 15 games. I feel like they're a bunch of nothing games, which we'll probably maybe win 1 or 2 of, finish mid-table. It feels like our season is not done already, but it's on its way to being a write-off. And that, for me, with the team we've got and the position we're in, with how weak the playoff pack is and what an opportunity we've had this season, that is not the place we need to be in. So I think the time is now. The fans are done. There's no getting the fans back at this point. If you were there at the Riverside today, you'll know exactly what the atmosphere was like. I don't see a way back. They've lost faith in the manager. They've gave up on some of the players. They don't enjoy the football or the style. And I think this today was the final roll of the dice from Michael Carrick. The final stab in the dark. The final hope that something will change. Something will happen. And it didn't work. It felt like when Chris Wilder played his final game or managed his final game at Boro against Coventry, and it was the same there. We all knew he was done, and he played a team which was just completely different in his last game as a sort of one final, as I say, roll of the dice, and it didn't work for him that day. We lost 1-0. This feels incredibly similar. He looks lost. He looks devoid of ideas. The team looks devoid of confidence. The fans have give up. Something needs to change to give us something to hold on to for the final 15 games. Otherwise, it is going to just be a nothing finish to the season. And as I say, with season card renewals coming up, the fans need something to buy into. With us having a full week pretty much until Friday when we play Bristol City, that gives someone some time, I guess. And then after that, we've got midweek games and fixtures start coming quicker. So that's when you struggle to think of a time to make a change. So I think the time's now. Now, do I think we'll sack him? I don't. My gut feeling tells me that the club won't do it. And I still feel like they'll give him the next game or maybe the game after. The only reason why I think they'll do that is because we're on the road and we're away from home. If we were at home again, I don't think they'd risk having another home game with an atmosphere that toxic where things could get that nasty again. But because we're away from home, I think they'll give him another game or two, because I think there's not less pressure, but I don't think things can look as bad on the road as what they would at the Riverside. So that's why I think they might afford him another game or two, because it's away from home. But if we don't win either, I don't think we'll see Michael Carrick in the dugout by the time we are next at home at the Riverside. But then by then, you're nearly at 10 games left. We could be 7 or 8 points off. So then you start thinking, well, how long can they leave it? Do you pull the trigger as early as possible to just give us the best chance? Or do they still hold out that Carrick will find something, because maybe there aren't any alternatives at the moment and they still feel like there's enough time for him to turn it around? But for me, I don't want to say I'm Carrick out, because I don't like that phrase. I don't like wishing for people to lose their job. And I'm incredibly grateful for everything he's done here. But for me, I feel like if there was a time to pull the trigger, this is it. Everything in that ground today, from the lineup, the atmosphere, the fan reaction, the substitutions, the performance, all pointed towards the end. So for me, losing a game like this against a team so out of form, it's inexcusable. I think they need to act now. And I hate saying that. I don't think I've ever had to on this channel. When I started, we were in the peak of Carrick's playoff season. And now it seems like we're at the end of that cycle. And I just hope someone can come in and give us hope. Now, I don't know if that's a short-term fix or a long-term one. Maybe that's a discussion to have when we do make the change. But we'll see. We'll see. we might see a decision or a statement at some point over the next day or two. As always, if there is, I'll be right there to make a video on it. I was thinking about doing a video on Carrick anyway this week, but I do have a feeling we might see some news drop anyway, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But until then, do let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Not as much on the game today because I feel like Carrick's future is much more of a pressing discussion point at this moment in time. So let me know your thoughts on the game. Boro fan, Watford fan, neutral. Your thoughts on Carrick. Are you still Carrick in? Do you still think there's a chance? Or do you think now is the right time to act? Let me know in the comment section below. And as always, hit a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the bell too so you never miss when a video drops. And if you'd rather listen to these on your chosen podcast provider, you can do via the links in the description. And also, I'm going to be back on Wednesday with a Project Boro live stream. I'm going to be going live on Wednesday night. At some point, I'll drop something on the community tab. I'll post something with a more accurate time. It might be around 7 p.m. or something like that. We'll have an hour and a half of a bit of a live stream discussion, which will be then publicised on the channel afterwards. So I'm going to be doing my first Project Boro live stream midweek, so you can jump on. We can discuss things, discuss Boro, ask questions, talk through stuff. By then, we might have a new manager. We might be on the brink of losing one. Carrick might still be here. We'll have to wait and see, but that will be dropping in the middle of the week. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and do join me if you've got the time. But until next time, other than that, I will be back at some point later in the week to preview the Bristol City game, which should be interesting. God knows if we'll even have a new manager by that point. Who knows? It's a big week for Boro this. But until then, take care, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.